I got off the bus with my bag over my shoulder and Uncle Thomas's keys poking into my palm. Blue Ridge sat between mountains that crowded too close, like they were trying to squeeze the life out of the town. Only one other person got off with me, an old woman who rushed away without looking back. The bus drove off, leaving me on the cracked sidewalk of what passed for Main Street. 3 buildings down was the sheriff's office, where Thomas's things waited. My first stop. Inside, a desk sergeant looked up from his crossword puzzle. His eyes got narrow when I said my name. "Mitchell," he said. Not a question. "Thomas's nephew." I nodded. He went into a back room and came back with a cardboard box. "Everything we collected from the scene," he said, pushing it across the counter. "What exactly happened?" I asked. The phone call 3 weeks back had been short on details, just that Thomas had died in what they called an accident on the mountain. The sergeant's face tightened. "It's all in the report." He tapped the folder on top of the box, fell during his night shift, bad head wound, probably died right away. The way he wouldn't meet my eyes told me there was more, but he wasn't sharing. I signed where he pointed and gathered up the box. It wasn't heavy, just a leather journal, a wallet with $43, a ring of keys marked Lodge, and his watch, the sum of a life. "Town's not used to outsiders," the sergeant said as I turned to leave, "even family." I nodded, taking the warning for what it was. Outside, the afternoon had cooled down. People walked up and down the sidewalks, but nobody looked at me, not directly. They'd glance, then look away. Quick darting eyes that checked me out without wanting to be caught doing it. I needed supplies before heading to the cabin, so I found the general store at the end of the block. A bell jingled overhead when I walked in. 4 people stood near the counter, all turning to stare. Their conversation stopped. "Help you?" The man behind the register had thick hands and a gray beard, just picking up some basics. I moved toward the grocery aisle. The whisper started before I was halfway there. Mitchell's nephew, just like him, here to stick his nose. Better hope he's smarter than his uncle was. I grabbed what I needed: bread, eggs, coffee, a couple cans of soup. When I brought it to the counter, the man rang me up without a word. "I'm Ryan Mitchell," I said, pushing my cash across the counter. Thomas was my uncle. The man counted my change with careful precision. The others had spread out to different corners of the store, suddenly interested in products they'd been ignoring. "Sam Guthrie," he finally said, bagging my things. "Sorry about your uncle." I waited for more, but that was it. "Any chance you knew him well?" I tried again. Sam shook his head. "Not really. Came in for supplies now and then, kept to himself." He pushed my bag forward. "Cabin's up on Mill Creek Road, last one before the forest starts proper." I took the hint and left, feeling the stares on my back. The cabin wasn't hard to find. A dirt driveway led to a small house that needed a fresh coat of paint. Pine trees grew close on 3 sides with branches that scraped the roof when the wind blew. Inside, it smelled musty and empty. One main room worked as kitchen and living area, with a bedroom and bathroom off to the side. I put my bags down and looked around. Thomas hadn't been much for decorating. A couch faced a small TV. The kitchen table had a stack of mail and an empty coffee mug. The cabinets had the basics: plates, cups, canned goods. It was what I found behind things that told the real story. An empty whiskey bottle behind the bread box, another under the bathroom sink, 3 more emptied and hidden in bedroom closet. I knew the drill. I'd done the same thing, hiding bottles from roommates, from girlfriends, from myself. 6 months clean, and seeing those bottles still made my throat tighten. On the kitchen table beneath the pile of junk mail, I found an envelope addressed to me. Inside was a letter on Ravens Peak Mountain Lodge letterhead. In the event of Thomas Mitchell's death or inability to perform his duties, the position of night watchman is offered to his next of kin, Ryan Mitchell. They'd known I would come, expected it even. The letter listed the pay, decent enough, and basic duties. Patrol the lodge from midnight to 8 a.m., log any disturbances, maintain security protocols. At the bottom, a handwritten note. "The job is yours if you want it. Call the number. George Campbell, manager." I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. The cabin felt smaller now, the walls closer, night was falling outside the windows. I unpacked, made a simple dinner, and tried to settle in. The journal from the sheriff's box sat on the table, but I wasn't ready to read it yet. Too raw, too real. Sleep came hard in the unfamiliar bed. I dozed off sometime after midnight only to jerk awake at the sound of scratching at my window. Scritch, scritch, scritch. I lay still, listening. It could have been branches, but there was a pattern to it. 3 scratches, pause. 3 more, pause. I got up and moved to the window, part of me not wanting to look. The glass showed only my reflection against the darkness outside. I pressed my face closer, cupping my hands around my eyes. Nothing but trees and shadows. The scratching had stopped. But as I stood there, something about the forest changed. The dark spots between the trees looked deeper than before, and they seemed to move in a weird way, almost like something was there, moving around, looking at me. I stepped back and drew the curtains closed. Sleep didn't come again that night. I sat at the kitchen table with Thomas's keys in front of me, turning the lodge key over and over in my fingers. The job offer felt too convenient, too ready, but I needed money. My savings wouldn't last long, and going back wasn't an option. Not yet. Not until I figured out what had really happened to Thomas. Come morning, I'd call the number, take the job, get a foothold in this strange, closed town. It was a fresh start, at least. And after 6 months of clawing my way towards sobriety, I knew how to recognize one when I saw it. Even if this one came with weird scratching sounds and shadows that moved around at night, I grabbed the phone from the security desk and punched in the number from the letter. 3 rings, then a rough voice answered, "Campbell, this is Ryan Mitchell about the night watchman position, Thomas's nephew." "Good. Can you start tonight?" No questions about my experience or qualifications, no mention of references or background checks, just the assumption I'd take it. "Yeah, I can start tonight. Be here at 8. I'll show you the rounds." He hung up without waiting for a response. I spent the day going through Thomas's things, looking for anything that might explain the scratching at my window or the town's strange reaction to me. His closet held work clothes, a few flannel shirts, boots worn down at the heels. The kitchen drawers had the usual junk, rubber bands, old receipts, takeout menus from places in town. In the bedroom nightstand, I found a small notebook filled with times and single-word notes. 10:15, howling. 2:30, scratching. 4:45, footprints. The last entry, from 3 days before his death, read, "It's getting closer." I stuck the notebook in my jacket pocket and headed out. Raven's Peak Lodge sat halfway up the mountain, a big wooden building that blended with the forest around it. The main building was 3 stories high with wings on both sides. Stone chimneys stuck up from the roof. The parking lot had only 2 cars when I got there. The front doors opened into a lobby with a high ceiling and a huge stone fireplace. Trophy heads hung on the walls, deer, elk, and 1 bear with glass eyes that seemed to follow me. George Campbell stood behind the reception desk. He was tall and skinny with deep lines around his mouth that made him look like he was always in a bad mood. "Mitchell," he said, not offering his hand. "Follow me." He led me through the lobby to a small office behind the reception desk. A bank of security monitors showed empty hallways and the dark parking lot. "This is your base. You'll make rounds every hour on the hour. Check all doors and windows, make sure everything's locked. Log anything you see in here." He tapped a thick binder on the desk. "What am I looking for exactly?" I asked. George's jaw tightened. "Nothing. You're not looking for anything. You're making sure the lodge is secure." He handed me a ring of keys and a flashlight, then led me through the building. The main floor had the lobby, restaurant, bar, and a few meeting rooms. The second and third floors held guest rooms, all empty now. "Off-season," George explained when I asked. "We'll have guests starting next month." The basement was last. Concrete floors, storage rooms, laundry facilities, and a boiler room. At the end of a long hallway stood a heavy metal door with 3 separate locks. "This stays locked," George said, not explaining why. "Always. No exceptions." "What's back there?" "Storage." His tone made it clear the subject was closed. "Just make your rounds every hour and log anything unusual." "What qualifies as unusual?" George's expression hardened. "Nothing is unusual here. No matter what you see or hear, it's just the mountain settling or animals in the woods. Don't investigate. Don't leave the marked paths." He pointed to a map on the wall showing the lodge grounds. Red lines marked paths between buildings and around the property. "Stay on these, especially at night. We returned to the security office where George checked his watch. It's 8:15. Your shift runs until 8 tomorrow morning. Questions? I had dozens, but his face told me none would be answered. No. Good. Phone's there if you need me. I live 10 minutes away. He headed for the door, then stopped. Your uncle was a good man. Reliable. Until he wasn't. Before I could ask what he meant, George was gone. I settled into the chair, watching the security monitors. The lodge creaked around me as the night got cooler. At 9, I made my first round. Everything was locked and quiet. The hours crawled by. I checked the basement twice, paying special attention to the metal door. All 3 locks remained secure. Whatever was behind it would stay there. By midnight, I noticed how quiet it was outside. No crickets, no owls, no rustling leaves, even though I could see the branches moving in the breeze. The quiet felt deliberate, like the forest was holding its breath. At 1 a.m., I heard the first odd sound, a low rumbling growl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. I checked the monitors. Nothing moved on any screen. My 2 a.m. round took me outside, following the marked path around the lodge's perimeter. The silence was even worse here. No night birds, no insects, not even the sound of small animals moving through the bushes. Just dead air and the crunch of gravel under my boots. I swept my flashlight across the tree line. Nothing moved, but the darkness between the trees seemed deeper than it should be, more solid somehow. Back inside, I logged what I'd seen, or rather, what I hadn't seen. 2:15 a.m., complete absence of wildlife sounds, unusual silence. At 3:17 a.m., it happened. A high-pitched scream cut through the night from somewhere in the forest. Not an animal sound, too human, too desperate. It rose in pitch until it broke, then stopped abruptly. I grabbed the phone and dialed George's number. He answered on the first ring like he'd been sitting with the phone in his hand. What? His voice was alert, not the voice of someone just woken up. I heard a scream in the woods, sounded like someone in trouble. I told you, ignore it, George snapped. That's just how things are here. But if someone's hurt, no one's out there. Stay inside. Stay on the paths. Do your job. He hung up. I sat back, my chest racing. The scream had been real. I knew it. But George's quick answer, his lack of surprise, he'd heard it before, expected it even. At 4 a.m. during my rounds, I heard footsteps on the roof, heavy, clear steps that crossed from one end to the other. I checked the security monitors. The roof camera showed nothing but empty shingles and night sky. By 5 a.m., I was getting super tired. I'd been up most of the night before, and the stress had worn me out. I made coffee in the small break room and went back to the monitors. That's when I saw them. Shadows moving at the tree line. Too big to be human. Too purposeful to be tricks of the light. They moved between the trees, sometimes on 4 legs, sometimes getting up to stand on 2. The camera's infrared couldn't quite catch them, just vague moving shapes that disappeared when I tried to look right at them. I wrote down everything, every sound, every shadow, every moment of weird quiet. Dawn came slowly, the sky changing from black to deep blue to pale gray. As the first sunlight hit the trees, I heard a sound like a deep group sigh from the forest. Then, like someone flipped a switch, birds began to sing. Squirrels made noise. The normal morning sounds filled the air. George showed up at 7:55, looking exactly as he had the night before. No messy hair, no sleepy eyes. He looked like he'd dressed in seconds. He looked at the logbook, his face getting tight as he read what I wrote. You wrote too much, he said, closing the book. Just note the times of your rounds and any maintenance issues. Nothing else. I heard a scream, I said. Saw things moving in the woods. No, you didn't. His voice was flat. You heard the wind, saw shadows from clouds passing over the moon. That's all. There weren't any clouds last night. George stared at me, his eyes hard. This job isn't for everyone. Your uncle understood that eventually. You need to decide if you can handle it. What happened to him? Really? He fell, hit his head. End of story. George picked up his keys. Will you be back tonight? I thought about the shadows, the scream, the footsteps on the roof, about Thomas's hidden bottles and cryptic notes. about the metal door in the basement with its 3 locks. Yeah, I said. I'll be back. George nodded once. 8 o'clock, don't be late. I walked back to the cabin in the morning light, too tired to drive. The forest just looked like regular trees and bushes now, nothing scary about it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from just beyond the tree line. Something that had screamed in the night. Something that had walked on the roof. Something that knew I was here. I pushed through the library's heavy oak doors, the hinges groaning like they hadn't been oiled in decades. The place was empty, except for a gray-haired woman behind the front desk. She wore glasses and stamped books quickly as I walked in. "Help you?" she asked without looking up. "I'm researching local history," I said, "specifically around Raven's Peak Lodge." Her hand froze mid-stamp. She looked up at me, lips pressed into a thin line. "Town records are in the back room." She pointed to a door with flaking green paint. "Newspapers are on microfilm, history sections on the left wall." I thanked her and headed toward the back room. The space smelled of old paper and dust with metal shelving units packed tight with cardboard boxes and bound volumes. A single microfilm reader sat on a desk in the corner with a pale blue light coming from its screen. I started with the history books, pulling down anything that mentioned Blue Ridge or the surrounding mountains. Most were standard local histories. When the town was founded, who the first settlers were, how the logging industry shaped the area. Nothing about strange occurrences or things in the woods. The microfilm proved more useful. I loaded spools of local newspapers, starting with the most recent and working backward. At first, nothing jumped out. Town council meetings, school events, weather reports. Then I hit 1972. 3 dead in mountain incident, the headline read. The article was frustratingly vague. 3 maintenance workers at Raven's Peak Lodge were found deceased yesterday morning. Sheriff Robert Tanner cited multiple factors in the deaths and assured residents that the situation has been contained. The lodge will remain closed for 2 weeks during investigation. No names, no cause of death, no follow-up articles in the next issues. I kept scrolling backward. The pattern emerged slowly. Every few years, a brief mention of someone gone missing. A hiker who never returned to his campsite. A hunter who went too deep into the woods. A teenager who took a dare to spend the night on the mountain. Some were found, many weren't. The librarian showed up behind me, making me jump. "We're closing in 5 minutes, she said, her eyes flicking to the screen. "Find what you needed." "Not exactly these articles about the disappearances, they're pretty light on details." She took off her glasses, cleaning them with the bottom of her cardigan. "Small town papers report what the town needs to know." "And what about what really happened?" Her eyes narrowed. "You're Thomas Mitchell's nephew?" It wasn't a question. "Yes, I'm working at the lodge now." "Then you should be careful what you go looking for." She reached past me and switched off the microfilm reader. "Some questions are better left unasked in Blue Ridge." I gathered my notes and headed out. The sun was setting, and the mountains had dark purple shadows. My shift didn't start for another 4 hours. I needed a drink. Not alcohol, I reminded myself, and maybe some food. The Timberline was the only bar in town. It had neon beer signs in the windows. Inside, the place was half full, mostly men in work clothes drinking beers at small tables. Conversation stopped when I walked in, then started again more quietly. I took a seat at the bar and ordered a club soda with lime. The bartender raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. "You're Mitchell's nephew," said a voice to my left. I turned to find a man in his 50s with rough skin and work-worn hands. He sipped a beer with 3 empty glasses pushed to the side. "Word travels fast," I said. "Small town," he extended his hand. "David Wilson. I worked with your uncle a few times, logging jobs." I shook his hand. "Ryan Mitchell. Heard you took his job at the lodge?" I nodded, sipping my soda. 3 nights in, and... His eyes were sharp despite the empty glasses in front of him. "And what? Seen anything yet?" The question hung between us. I thought about the screams, the footsteps on the roof, the shadows at the tree line. "Maybe," I said carefully. David nodded like I'd confirmed something. He glanced around, then slid onto the stool next to mine. "Your uncle and I talked sometimes." When he'd come in here, David's voice dropped lower. He asked questions too about the mountain, about the things people see up there. What kind of things? David took a long pull from his beer. Been here all my life. My daddy too, and his daddy before him. Some things you just grow up knowing. Like what? Like staying on the paths. Like not going into certain parts of the woods after dark. He leaned closer. Like what happens to folks who break the rules. The bartender came our way, wiping down the counter. David straightened up, falling silent until the man moved on. Your uncle knew what was out there. He whispered once we were alone again. We all do been here for generations. Some call it a beast. Others say it's something older than the mountains themselves. I suddenly felt spooked, and it wasn't from the bar's AC. David looked at me. I don't call it anything. Don't talk about it at all most times. Bad luck. Then why are you talking to me? He drained his beer and signaled for another. Because you're here now. Because you took that job. And because your uncle was asking the same questions before he died. What happened to him, really? David accepted a fresh beer from the bartender, waiting until we were alone again. Official story as he fell, hit his head, and the unofficial story. He went looking for answers, found something else instead. David's fingers tapped nervously on his glass. Look, I shouldn't be saying this much. Town has ways of dealing with people who talk too much. Who should I talk to then? Someone must know what's really going on. David hesitated, glancing toward the door like he was considering making a run for it. Finally, he sighed. Ask the old man who lives by Blackwater Creek, he said. Harold knows more than anyone. Cabin's about 3 miles up the north road where the creek bends under the big oak. Harold who? Jenkins. Harold Jenkins. David stood abruptly. I've said too much already. Just be careful up there at night. Stay on the paths. Don't go investigating strange noises. He tossed some bills on the bar and headed for the door, hunching his shoulders like someone was about to hit him. I finished my soda and paid my tab. Outside it was completely dark now. You could see stars between the clouds, and the half-moon barely lit up the empty street. My car was parked at the end of the block. As I walked to it, it got noticeably colder. The hair on my arm stood up. Something felt off. I stopped to listen. The town was dead quiet. No cars. Nobody walking around. Just an owl hooting somewhere and leaves rustling in the wind. Then I saw it. A huge shadow ran across the road ahead, way too fast for how big it was. It came and went in seconds, but I couldn't forget what I'd seen. Something big on 4 legs that didn't look like any normal animal. I grabbed my flashlight, turned it on, and pointed it all over the road. Nothing was there. No tracks. Nothing moving in the bushes on either side. But the air smelled different now, like wet fur and pennies, an animal and blood together. I couldn't move, and my hands shook a little as I held the flashlight. After a whole minute of nothing, I made myself move, rushing to my car and locking the doors as soon as I got in. The engine started right away, my headlights lighting up the dark road. As I drove toward the cabin, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever I'd seen crossing the road wasn't just passing through. It was watching, waiting. I had a gut feeling it had been watching me ever since I got to Blue Ridge. I pulled my car onto the narrow dirt track where Blackwater Creek Road turned from pavement to gravel. The trees crowded in from both sides, branches scraping against the windows. David's directions had been simple enough. Follow the north road until the big oak where the creek bent. But in these woods, every tree looked old and tall. The road got even narrower, making me slow down to a crawl. My headlights showed a wooden bridge crossing the creek with gray, worn-out planks. Past it was a small cabin with a metal roof that caught some of the afternoon light. I parked and turned off the engine. It got really quiet right away, except for the soft sound of the creek and a woodpecker tapping somewhere nearby. The cabin looked barely lived in. Smoke came from the stone chimney, and there was a stack of split wood against one wall. The porch drooped a little in the middle. On that porch sat a man in a wooden rocking chair, so still I hadn't noticed him at first. He watched me without moving, hands resting on his knees. I got out of the car and approached the bridge. The old boards creaked under my weight. "You're Thomas's boy," the man said before I'd even reached the other side. His voice carried clearly across the space between us, neither raised nor strained. I stopped halfway across. "I'm his nephew, Ryan Mitchell." The man nodded like this confirmed something he already knew. "Harold Jenkins. He gestured to the empty chair beside him. Come sit. I crossed the rest of the bridge and climbed the 3 steps to the porch. Up close, Harold looked older than I'd expected. His face had deep wrinkles and his hair was all white. But his eyes were bright as he looked me over. How did you know who I was? I asked, lowering myself into the chair. You look like him, around the eyes. Harold kept rocking, the chair making a soft rhythm against the wooden boards. And not many strangers come this way. David Wilson told me I should talk to you. Harold's mouth twitched. David talks too much when he drinks. Always has. He said you know things about the mountain. I know many things. Which ones are you after? I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. I've been working at the lodge for 3 nights now. I've heard screams in the forest, footsteps on the roof, seen shadows moving between the trees. Harold's rocking slowed but didn't stop. You've been hearing it at night, haven't you? His tone made my stomach drop. He already knew. What is it? I asked. Harold looked past me to the darkening forest. The sun was low in the sky and the clearing was getting dark. The mountain has always had a keeper, he said. Something old. Something that was here long before the first settlers cut down trees to build their homes. A beast? That's what some call it. Names don't matter much to things that old. I thought about the shadows I'd seen, the unnatural movement at the tree line. What does it want? Same as any living thing, territory, food. Harold's eyes came back to mine. The town made a pact generations ago. We stay on marked paths, never hunt in certain areas, leave offerings at stone markers deep in the woods. Offerings? Like sacrifices? Harold shook his head. Food mostly. Sometimes tools or clothes, things it finds useful. And in return? In return, it takes only what it needs. The implications of that hung in the air between us. I thought about the missing hikers, the dead maintenance workers, the strange silence in the forest at night. My uncle, I said. What happened to him? Harold's rocking stopped completely. Thomas broke the rules, got curious about what was behind that metal door. My breath caught. The door in the basement with the 3 locks? Harold nodded, his face grim. That door was part of the original pact, a boundary line. What's behind it? Harold's eyes widened slightly. A way in, or maybe a way out for it. The sun was getting lower. Harold looked up at the darkening sky and quickly stood up. You need to go, he said. It's not safe after dark. I stood too, not ready to leave. But I still don't understand. Understanding won't save you. Harold disappeared into the cabin, returning moments later with a small leather pouch. He pressed it into my hand, his fingers cold against mine. Keep this with you. Stay on the path. Never leave the lodge during your shift. The pouch was soft, worn by years of handling. It felt heavy for its size. What is it? Protection. Of a sort. Harold was already ushering me toward the steps. Go now, and don't come back here after sunset. I stumbled down the steps, the urgency in his voice pushing me forward. At the bridge, I turned back. My uncle's journal mentioned footprints, scratching, things getting closer. What was he talking about? Harold stood at the edge of his porch, half in shadow now. The beast tests boundaries, always has. But something's changed. It's getting bolder. Why? Because the pact is weakening. Has been for years. Harold's face was deadly serious. Your uncle wasn't the first to break the rules, just the most recent. I wanted to ask more, but the sun had nearly disappeared behind the mountains. The forest around us was darkening rapidly. Go, Harold said one last time, and remember, stay on the paths. I drove back too fast on the narrow road, looking in my rearview mirror more than at the road ahead. The trees seemed to crowd the road behind me. By the time I got back to regular pavement, I was gripping the steering wheel super tight. Back at the cabin, I locked the door and closed the curtains. I still had 3 hours before my shift at the lodge. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the leather pouch Harold had given me. Inside was a small bundle of dried herbs tied with twine. They smelled strong and weird. Under that was what looked like a tooth, yellow, curved, and way too big for any normal animal. It was as long as my thumb, with a jagged edge that shined in the light. I put the tooth on the table and looked at it. Whatever it came from would have had a mouthful of these. Something that ate meat. My phone rang, making me jump. Emma's name popped up on the screen. "Hey," I answered, trying to sound normal. "Ryan, you okay?" "You sound weird." "I'm fine. Just getting ready for work." "How's it going?" "The job working out." I looked at the tooth on the table. "It's interesting." "Interesting how?" "Just different than I expected." I couldn't tell her about the screams, the shadows, the beast. She'd think I was hallucinating, that sobriety had cracked something in my brain. "How are things with you?" "Same old." "Listen, I was thinking of coming to visit next month. See this place you're settling into." "No," I said too quickly. "I mean, not yet. Let me get more established first." Silence on the line. Then, "Ryan, are you sure you're okay? You don't sound like yourself. Just tired, new job, new schedule." I forced a laugh that sounded hollow even to me. "Night shifts are messing with my sleep, if you say so." She didn't sound convinced. "Call me if you need anything, okay? Anytime. I will. Promise." After we hung up, I put the tooth and herbs back in the pouch and slipped it into my pocket. I ate a quick dinner, not tasting the food, then headed to the lodge for my shift. George was waiting in the security office, flipping through the previous night's log. He looked up when I entered. "You're early," he said, checking his watch. "Couldn't sleep." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Something on your mind?" I thought about telling him I'd spoken with Harold, but something in his earlier warning made me hesitate. "Just getting used to the schedule." George nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Make your rounds on time tonight. We had some disturbances last night after you left." "What kind of disturbances?" "Nothing to worry about. Just keep to the paths and log anything unusual." He headed for the door, then paused. "And Mitchell? Whatever you hear tonight, stay inside." The door closed behind him before I could ask what he meant. I sat down in the chair, watching the security monitors showing empty hallways and darkened rooms. My hand kept going to the leather pouch in my pocket, fingers feeling the outline of the tooth through the soft material. At 10, I made my first round. The lodge was quiet, the empty guest rooms locked and dark. In the basement, I checked the metal door with its 3 locks, all locked up. By midnight, the usual silence had fallen outside. No crickets, no night birds, no rustling leaves, just dead air and the occasional creak of the lodge settling. At 12:17 it started, a low howl from somewhere in the forest, rising in pitch until it seemed to fill the entire night. It wasn't a wolf. Too deep, too sustained. It held for nearly 30 seconds before fading. I checked the monitors. Nothing moved on any screen. The howling came again at 1:05, closer this time. It sounded like it was coming from just beyond the tree line. I made my rounds at 1:30, staying inside as George had warned. Through the windows, I could see nothing but darkness and the vague outlines of trees. At 2:22, during my rounds, I heard scratching at the main entrance. 3 distinct scratches. A pause, then 3 more. The same pattern I'd heard at the cabin my first night. I walked to the door slowly, flashlight raised, the scratching stopped. Then came a soft thump, like something heavy leaning against the wood. I couldn't move, my hand tied around the leather pouch in my pocket. After a full minute of silence, I worked up the courage to look through the peephole, nothing but darkness. I returned to the security office and logged what I'd heard. The rest of the night passed in tense silence. No more howls, no more scratching, just the feeling that something was out there, watching and waiting. When George arrived at 7:55, I was already packed up to leave. "Anything to report?" he asked, scanning the logbook, howling closer than before and scratching at the main entrance around 2:30. George's face remained impassive, but I noticed his knuckles whitening as he gripped the edge of the desk. "Did you go outside?" "No, you said to stay in." He nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Good, that's good." I hesitated, then decided to take the risk. "I talked to Harold Jenkins yesterday." George's head snapped up, eyes suddenly alert. "What did he tell you? About the pact, the beast? What's behind the door? And you believe him?" George's voice was carefully neutral. "I believe something's out there. something that killed my uncle. George was silent for a long moment, studying my face. Finally, he sighed. Harold knows things, yes, but he's not always reliable. He seemed pretty clear to me. Just be careful what you take as truth around here. George picked up the logbook. Some stories get twisted over time. I nodded, not convinced, but unwilling to push further. See you tonight. The morning air felt clean after the stale air of the lodge. I drove back to the cabin with the windows down to freshen up. The forest looked normal in daylight, just trees and bushes, nothing weird. But as I pulled up to the cabin, I spotted something on the front porch, a small, dark shape. I got out to check. It was a dead rabbit with a broken neck, not torn up or bloody, just broken cleanly. Someone had placed it right in front of my door. I looked around. The clearing was empty, the forest quiet except for normal morning sounds. I picked up the rabbit by its back legs and carried it to the edge of the woods. As I tossed it into the bushes, I felt like this was a message, or maybe a warning, or maybe an offering. I flipped through my uncle's journal. The cover was old and smooth from use. I found it hidden behind some old incident reports in the security office filing cabinet, not where it should have been with his other stuff. Someone had put it there on purpose. The first entries were pretty normal. Weather notes, maintenance issues, quick mentions of wildlife he saw during night rounds. March 3rd, quiet night, fixed loose railing on east staircase. Raccoon got into the dumpster again. March 7th, heavy rain. Leak in lobby ceiling near fireplace, left note for maintenance. But around mid-April, the writing changed. April 16th, heard something in the basement tonight. Not pipes, not settling, like whispers. Checked 3 times. Nothing there. April 22nd, footprints outside the east entrance. Too big for a person. Not shaped right for a bear. George says I'm seeing things. I turned the page, forgetting about my coffee getting cold next to me. The handwriting got messier as the entries went on, with neat lines turning into slanted writing that sometimes cut into the paper. May 3rd. They're watching me from the trees. I can see their eyes reflecting my flashlight. Not animals. They don't move right. May 10th. Found scratches on the basement door. 3 sets, always 3. George says it's nothing. He's lying. May 17th. It knows when I'm alone. It waits until I'm alone. The final pages had broken thoughts, with some sentences stopping halfway. Others pushed so hard into the paper they almost broke through. May 30th. Can't sleep. It's scratching at my windows at home now. 3 times. Pause. 3 times. June sick. Harold knows. He's always known. Says I need to stay on the paths. Too late for that. The last entry was dated 3 days before his death, June 5th. It's not what they say it is. Not a beast. Something worse. It wears faces. It knows things. I closed the journal, my hands shaking a bit. The security office felt cramped now. The monitors showed empty hallways, vacant rooms. In the quiet forest beyond the lodge's walls, everything looked normal. Nothing was. My watch showed 1:47 a.m., time for another round. I grabbed my flashlight and radio, putting the journal in my jacket pocket. The lodge made creaking sounds as I walked the main floor, the usual noises of an old building. Nothing weird in the lobby, nothing in the restaurant or meeting rooms. The basement was last, like always. I hated going down there, especially after reading the journal. The stairs made noise under my weight as it got colder with each step. The bare bulbs made yellow spots of light that didn't reach the corners. I was halfway down the hallway when I saw them, muddy footprints coming from the utility entrance. They went straight to the metal door with its 3 locks. I followed slowly, keeping my flashlight on the prints. They weren't human. Too large, weirdly shaped, with what looked like claw marks at the edges. Not bear tracks either. Nothing I knew. The trail ended at the door. The locks were fine, but the metal had fresh scratches, 3 parallel lines deep enough to cut the steel. I touched them, feeling the rough edges. Something had tried to get in, or out. My radio made a crackling noise, making me jump. "Mitchell, you there?" George's voice tight with tension. I keyed the mic. "Yeah, in the basement." A pause. "Stay there." I waited, listening to the heating system running and my own breathing. Less than 5 minutes later, I heard the security door upstairs slam open and footsteps pounding down the stairs. George appeared at the end of the hallway, still buttoning his flannel shirt, hair sticking up on one side. He looked like he'd dressed in seconds. "What did you see?" he demanded, striding toward me. I pointed at the footprints. "These weren't here during my midnight round." George stared at the tracks, then at the scratched door. His face went slack for a moment before turning into something between anger and fear. "You need to forget what you saw," he said, pushing past me to a supply closet. He pulled out a mop and bucket. "What are you doing?" "Cleaning up." He filled the bucket at a utility sink, sloshing water onto his shoes in his haste. "Shouldn't we document this? Call someone." "No." The word came out sharp as a slap. George began mopping the mud, erasing the prints with quick, aggressive strokes. "This isn't something we report." I pulled the journal from my pocket. "My uncle saw things too, wrote about them." George's hands froze on the mop handle. "Where did you get that?" "Found it in the filing cabinet." "Someone hid it. Give it to me." He held out his hand, water dripping from his fingers onto the concrete floor. I stepped back, keeping the journal. "It's my uncle's. Belongs to me now." George's jaw worked, a muscle twitching in his cheek. "Your uncle couldn't let it go." And look what happened. What did happen? Because I'm starting to think he didn't just fall. George resumed mopping, his movements jerky. "Some things are better left alone, Mitchell. This town has ways of dealing with problems. Has for generations. Harold Jenkins told me about the pact." The mop clattered to the floor. George's face drained of color so quickly I thought he might pass out. "Stay away from him," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "He's not right in the head. He seemed pretty clear to me. Told me about the beast, the offerings, the boundaries." George picked up the mop, his hands shaking slightly. "Harold Jenkins is dangerous. He knows things, yes, but he's not what you think." "What is he then?" "Just stay away from him." George finished cleaning the mud, then wrung out the mop with more force than necessary. "And stay on the paths. Always on the paths." He gathered his cleaning supplies and headed for the stairs, then paused, looking back at me. "You're a lot like your uncle. Curious, stubborn. He couldn't stop digging either. Is that why he died?" George's eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw something like pity there. "Finish your shift, Mitchell. Lock up when you leave. And for God's sake, stay inside." After he left, I stood alone in the basement corridor, staring at the now clean floor and the scratched door. The journal felt heavy in my pocket. I finished my rounds and returned to the security office. The rest of the night passed in tense silence. I logged the incident in careful, neutral language. Mud tracked in from utility entrance, cleaned by manager. At 4:17 a.m. I heard it, a child crying outside. The sound was faint at first, just on the edge of hearing a soft, hiccuping sob that might have been the wind, but it came again clearer this time. Unmistakable. I checked the monitors. The exterior camera showed nothing but empty grounds and dark trees. The crying continued, rising and falling, like real distress. I grabbed my flashlight and radio, hesitating at the door. George's warning came back to me, "Stay inside," but it was a child lost. Frightened child. Keyed my radio. "George, you there?" Static answered me. I tried again. Nothing. The crying grew louder, more desperate. I made my decision, unlocking the main entrance and stepping outside. The night air hit me like a wall, cold and damp. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping across the empty parking lot to the tree line beyond. There, a small figure at the edge of the woods, child's side, standing perfectly still. "Hello?" I called, my voice sounding thin in the vast silence. "Are you okay?" The crying stopped. The figure didn't move. I took a step forward, then another. "It's all right, I'm here to help." The figure backed away, disappearing between the trees. "Wait." I moved faster, following the small shape as it withdrew deeper into the forest. My flashlight caught glimpses, a pale arm, the back of a head, small feet moving between fallen logs. I pushed through branches, stumbling over roots. The lodge lights got farther away behind me. The child stayed just ahead, always visible but never quite reachable. "Please stop, I won't hurt you." The figure stopped in a small clearing with their back to me. I felt so relieved as I walked up. "Hey there, are you lost? Let me help you get." I stopped mid-sentence as my flashlight beam went across the ground. There was no path beneath my feet, just wild forest floor untouched by human traffic. I'd left the path. I felt sick with shock. Harold's warning, George's insistence, stay on the paths. The crying stopped. Everything went quiet, making my ears feel stuffed. Not even insects made noise in the darkness. Slowly, the small figure turned. Before I could see its face, a low growl rumbled through the clearing. Not from the child shape, but from everywhere at once. From the trees, the ground, the air itself. It shook my chest and made my teeth rattle. I backed away, my flashlight jumping wildly across the trees. Shadows moved between the trunks. Huge, liquid shapes that seemed to flow instead of walk. More growls joined the first, making a circle of sound around me. The child figure stood completely still now. My flashlight caught its face for just a moment. Blank, expressionless, with eyes that bounced the light back at me. I turned and ran, smashing through bushes, branches, slapping my face. Behind me, the growling got louder, closer. I could hear heavy movement in the forest, the snap of branches breaking under heavy weight. I saw the lodge lights through the trees and pushed harder, my lungs burning. The building seemed so far away. Something brushed my back, not quite touching, but close enough to feel its heat. I didn't look back. Couldn't look back. The edge of the forest was just ahead. 3 more strides and I burst from the tree line, stumbling across open ground toward the lodge entrance. I slammed into the door, fumbling with my keys, dropping them once before managing to jam the right one into the lock. As I pushed inside, I risked one quick look back. The forest wasn't moving, no sound, no motion, no sign of the child or whatever had chased me. But at the exact edge of the trees where forest met cleared ground stood Harold Jenkins. He raised one hand in what might have been a hello or a warning. Then he turned and walked into the darkness, vanishing between the trees as if he belonged there. I locked the door, my hands shaking so bad I had to try twice. Back in the security office, I collapsed into the chair, breathing hard and fast. The monitors showed nothing unusual, just empty grounds, dark forest, as if nothing had happened. I pulled out my uncle's journal and opened to the last page, reading his final words again. It's not what they say it is. Not a beast. Something worse. It wears faces. It knows things. Outside, the forest waited, and somewhere deep inside it, something that could look like a child, watched the lodge with patient, hungry eyes. I picked up the rifle from the floor where I'd dropped it, my hands still shaking. The tunnel was right there in the concrete wall where the metal door had been locked for decades. The air coming out of it smelled weird, damp and metallic like old pennies left in rain. My flashlight showed the first few yards of the rocky tunnel before it got too dark to see. Footprints were in the dirt floor, the same odd clawed prints I'd seen leading to the door earlier, but these went in, not out. I keyed my radio. "George, the basement door is open." Static answered me. "George, do you copy?" Nothing. The smart move would be to back away, lock up the lodge and run. But the image of that child figure at the tree line kept flashing through my mind. Whatever had lured me into the woods last night was connected to this tunnel and maybe to my uncle's death. I checked the rifle-loaded safety off. My uncle had taught me to shoot when I was 12. I hadn't held a gun since getting sober. The weight of it felt both weird and normal in my hands. I stepped into the tunnel. The darkness got thicker around me. My flashlight seemed to dim the farther I went, barely cutting through the heavy air. The passage sloped downward, curving gently to the right. The walls changed from concrete to rough stone. Water dripped somewhere ahead, each splash bouncing back to me. The temperature dropped with every step, my breath fogged in front of my face. I'd been walking for maybe 10 minutes when I heard it. A soft scraping sound like nails on stone. I froze, listening. It came again, farther ahead. Then silence. "Hello?" My voice sounded flat, absorbed by the stone around me. No answer, just the steady drip of water. I continued forward, rifle raised now. The tunnel got a bit wider. the ceiling higher until my light couldn't reach it. The air felt heavier here, making it harder to breathe. The memory of waking up in the woods that morning came back to me. Dirt under my fingernails, leaves in my hair. No idea how I'd gotten there. The last thing I remembered was running from whatever had chased me in the forest, seeing Harold at the tree line, then locking myself in the lodge. The next thing I knew, I was lying face down in the dirt half a mile from the lodge as dawn broke through the trees. George and the others had been waiting when I stumbled back. Their trucks parked in a half circle at the entrance. Their faces had been grim, accusing. "You left the path," George had said, his voice flat. "We can't protect you now." I'd tried to explain about the child, the crying, how I'd only been trying to help. They gave each other looks I couldn't understand. "There are no children at the lodge," George had said. "Never have been." I pushed the memory away, focusing on the tunnel ahead. The passage got wider, opening into what seemed like a bigger space. My light couldn't reach far enough to see walls or ceiling. I stepped forward, and my boot hit something solid. I aimed my flashlight down. A stone marker stood at my feet, waist high and crudely carved. Symbols I didn't understand were all over its surface. Spirals, jagged lines, shapes that might have been eyes or mouths. The stone was dark with age and something that looked like dried blood. I moved my light around and saw more markers making a rough circle. In the middle of that circle stood a figure. "Harold?" My voice cracked on the name. He stood with his back to me, head bowed as if in prayer or concentration. He didn't turn at my voice. "Harold, what is this place?" "I tried to warn you," he said, his voice oddly flat. "The beast has chosen you as its new keeper." "What are you talking about?" I kept the rifle ready, something in his posture setting off alarms in my head. "The pact is broken. You broke it when you left the pact." Harold's shoulders rose and fell with a deep breath. "Now someone has to take my place. Your place." Harold turned slowly. His face was wrong. Skin stretched too tight across the bones, eyes black from corner to corner. When he smiled, his mouth opened too wide. "I've been the keeper for so long," he said, his voice distorting, holding it back, feeding it just enough to keep it satisfied. "But I'm tired, Ryan. So tired." I raised the rifle. "What are you?" "I'm Harold Jenkins. I'm what's left of him." The thing wearing Harold's face took a step toward me. "I made the pact 100 years ago to save this town. Bound myself to the beast to keep it contained." Another step. I backed up, keeping the distance between us. "Stay back. You don't understand yet." Harold's face twisted in what might have been sadness. "But you will. The beast has marked you. It wants you now." "The beast? That thing in the woods?" Harold laughed, and it sounded creepy and sick. "What you saw in the woods was just a fragment, a piece it sends out to hunt. The real beast is much worse." My back hit stone. I'd reached the edge of the chamber. "The girl you saw wasn't real," Harold continued, still advancing. "Just bait. The beast wears faces to lure its prey. It knows what you fear, what you want, what you'll follow into the dark." I thought of the kid at the edge of the forest, its empty face and reflective eyes, the way it had stood frozen, watching me run. "My uncle," I said. "Did he come down here too?" "Thomas found this place, yes. He was curious. Like you." Harold was close enough now that I could smell him, a musty, wrong smell like wet earth and decay. "He wasn't suitable, too broken already. The beast needs someone stronger." I raised the rifle higher. "Don't come any closer." Harold stopped, his black eyes locked on mine. "You can't stop what's happening, Ryan. The beast has picked you. It's already inside you. That's how you ended up in the woods this morning. It's testing you, seeing if you'll fit." "Fit for what?" "To be its new keeper." Harold spread his arms. "To take my place." I saw movement behind him, something moving in the darkness beyond my flashlight's reach, something big. "What happens if I refuse?" Harold's too wide smile returned. "Then the beast takes the town, all of it. The pact will be broken completely." My finger got tighter on the trigger. "And if I kill you?" "Then you've removed the last barrier holding it back." Harold took another step forward. "I am the lock on its cage, Ryan. Kill me, and you set it free." The movement behind him got bigger, a huge dark shape rising from the cavern floor. I couldn't see what it was, just something big and wrong that hurt to look at. I had seconds to decide. Harold kept coming, his face changing into something that didn't look human anymore with each step. I fired. The shot was super loud in the small space. Harold stumbled backward, blood spreading across his chest. He looked down at the wound like he was a little surprised. "You fool," he gasped, dropping to his knees. I was the only thing keeping it contained. I moved up carefully, still pointing my rifle. Harold fell onto his back with blood forming a puddle under him. "The beast isn't what you think," he wheezed, grabbing my ankle with surprising strength. "It's been hiding as the girl you saw. Now there's nothing stopping it." His grip loosened. As I watched, his body got old fast. Skin wrinkled, hair turned white, flesh sank against bone. His black eyes turned milky white, then clouded over. The ground started shaking. Dust and small rocks fell from the ceiling. The shadow behind Harold's body grew bigger, filling the chamber. I ran. The tunnel seemed longer going back, bending in ways I didn't remember. The shaking got worse, the walls cracking around me. I tripped twice, catching myself on the rough stone. Behind me something howled, a sound too big for the tunnel, too big for the mountain itself. It chased me upward, pushing at my back. I burst through the metal door into the basement corridor. The lights were flickering, the building making creaking noises around me. I sprinted for the stairs, taking them two at a time. The main floor was a mess, furniture knocked over, windows cracked. I ran for the entrance, not stopping to grab anything from the security office. Outside, the night was full of noise and movement. Car engines revved, people shouted, headlights cut through the darkness as vehicles pulled away from homes. The town was leaving. I ran to my car, threw the rifle in the back seat, and sped out of the parking lot. The road into town was packed with cars and trucks, all heading in the opposite direction, away from Blue Ridge. Main Street was crazy. People loaded vehicles with whatever they could carry. Children cried. A fire had started in one of the storefronts, with orange flames reaching into the night sky. I spotted David Wilson directing traffic at an intersection. I pulled over and jumped out. "What's happening?" I shouted over the noise. David looked really serious. "You killed him, didn't you?" It wasn't really a question. Harold was our protection. He made the original pact 100 years ago. Now it's free. I didn't know. Doesn't matter now. David pointed down the road. "Get out while you can. It's coming." I got back in my car and followed the stream of vehicles heading out of town. We made it 3 miles before hitting a roadblock. A massive tree had fallen across the highway, blocking both lanes. I turned around, trying another route. Same story. A washout had taken out the bridge over Blackwater Creek. The storm that blew in was flooding low areas, cutting off escape routes. After the 3rd blocked road, I gave up and headed back to my uncle's cabin. The town was half empty now. Those who couldn't get out were either locking themselves in their homes or gathering at the church, whose lights shone in the darkness. I pulled up to the cabin and sat in the car engine idling. The rifle lay on the back seat, useless now. I'd killed Harold thinking I was protecting myself. Instead, I'd broken the last seal holding back whatever lived under the mountain. My phone rang. Emma's name flashed on the screen. "Ryan, I've been trying to reach you for hours." Her voice was tight with worry. "I'm okay," I lied. "Just been busy. You don't sound okay. What's going on?" I watched lightning flash over the mountains. The storm was getting worse. "Nothing. Everything's fine. Ryan, please talk to me. I'm worried about you." I closed my eyes, leaning my head against the steering wheel. "I think I made a mistake coming here, Em." "Then come home. Just get in your car and drive. I'll meet you halfway." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I killed a man tonight. Because I set something free that should have stayed locked away. Because every road out of town is blocked. I just need to figure some things out first," I said instead. "Ryan, you're scaring me. This doesn't sound like you." "I'm fine, really." I forced a steadiness into my voice. I didn't feel. "I'll call you tomorrow, okay? Promise?" "Promise." I ended the call and got out of the car. The wind had picked up, bending the trees at the edge of the clearing. I unlocked the cabin door and stepped inside, locking it behind me. The cabin felt different now, smaller, more vulnerable. I checked all the windows, drawing the curtains tight. I brought in the rifle and loaded a fresh round into the chamber. From my window, I could see movement in the forest, trees swaying against the wind as if pushed aside by something large moving between them. Even though it was summer, the air inside the cabin turned so cold I could see my breath. I sat at the kitchen table, rifle across my lap, and waited for whatever was coming. I grabbed the rifle from the floor where I dropped it, my hand still shaking. The tunnel was in front of me, a dark opening in the concrete wall where the metal door had been locked for decades. The air coming from it smelled wrong, damp and metallic like old pennies left in rain. My flashlight showed the first few yards of rocky passage before the darkness took over. Footprints marked the dirt floor, the same odd clawed prints I'd seen leading to the door earlier. But these went in, not out. I keyed my radio. "George, the basement door is open." Static answered me. "George, do you copy?" Nothing. The smart move would be to back away, lock up the lodge, and run. But the image of that child figure at the tree line kept flashing through my mind. Whatever had lured me into the woods last night was connected to this tunnel, and maybe to my uncle's death. I checked the rifle, loaded, safety off. My uncle had taught me to shoot when I was 12. I hadn't held a gun since getting sober, the weight of it both odd and strange in my hands. I stepped into the tunnel. The darkness surrounded me completely. My flashlight seemed to dim the farther I went, barely cutting through the thick air. The passage sloped downward, curving gently to the right. The walls changed from poured concrete to rough stone, as if the builders had started with modern materials but given up as they dug deeper. Water dripped somewhere ahead, each splash bouncing back to me. The temperature dropped with every step. My breath fogged in front of my face. I'd been walking for maybe 10 minutes when I heard it. A soft scraping sound like nails on stone. I froze, listening. It came again, farther ahead. Then silence. "Hello?" My voice sounded flat, absorbed by the stone around me. No answer, just the steady drip of water. I continued forward. Rifle raised now, the tunnel got a bit wider, the ceiling going up so high my light couldn't reach it. The air felt heavier here, making it harder to breathe. I remembered waking up in the woods that morning, dirt under my fingernails, leaves in my hair. No idea how I'd gotten there. The last thing I remembered was running from whatever had chased me in the forest, seeing Harold at the tree line, then locking myself in the lodge. The next thing I knew, I was lying face down in the dirt, half a mile from the lodge as the sun came up. George and the others had been waiting when I stumbled back. Their trucks parked in a half circle at the entrance. Their faces had been grim, accusing. "You left the path," George had said, his voice flat. "We can't protect you now." I tried to explain about the child, the crying, how I'd only been trying to help. They'd exchanged looks I couldn't read. "There are no children at the lodge," George had said. "Never have been." I pushed the memory away, focusing on the tunnel ahead. The passage got wider, opening into what felt like a bigger space. My light couldn't reach far enough to see walls or ceiling. I stepped forward and my boot hit something solid. I pointed my flashlight down. A stone marker stood at my feet, waist high and crudely cut. Weird symbols covered its surface, spirals, jagged lines, shapes that looked like eyes or mouths. The stone was darkened over time and had something that looked like dried blood. I moved my light around and saw more markers making a rough circle. In the middle of that circle stood a figure. "Harold?" My voice cracked on the name. He stood with his back to me, head bowed as if in prayer or concentration. "Your place." Harold turned slowly. His face looked off. Skin pulled too tight across the bones, eyes black from corner to corner. When he smiled, his mouth opened way too wide. "I've been the keeper for so long," he said, his voice distorting, holding it back, feeding it just enough to keep it satisfied. "But I'm tired, Ryan. So tired." I raised the rifle. "What are you?" "I'm Harold Jenkins. I'm what's left of him." The thing wearing Harold's face took a step toward me. "I made the pact 100 years ago to save this town. Bound myself to the beast to keep it contained." Another step. I backed up, keeping the distance between us. "Stay back. You don't understand yet." Harold's face twisted in what might have been sadness. "But you will. The beast has marked you. It wants you now." "The beast? That thing in the woods?" Harold laughed, making a gross, wet sound that bounced around the room. What you saw in the woods was just a fragment, a piece it sends out to hunt. The real beast is much worse. My back hit stone. I'd reached the edge of the chamber. The girl you saw wasn't real. Harold continued, still advancing. Just bait. The beast wears faces to lure its prey. It knows what you fear, what you want, what you'll follow into the dark. I thought of the child figure at the tree line, its blank face and mirror eyes, the way it had stood so still, watching me run. My uncle, I said. Did he come down here too? Thomas found this place, yes. He was curious, like you. Harold was close enough now that I could smell him, a musty, wrong smell, like wet earth and decay. He wasn't suitable, too broken already. The beast needs someone stronger. I raised the rifle higher. Don't come any closer. Harold stopped, looking right at me. You can't stop what's happening, Ryan. The beast has chosen you. It's already inside you. That's how you ended up in the woods this morning. It's testing you, seeing if you'll fit. Fit for what? To be its new keeper. Harold spread his arms. To take my place. I saw movement behind him. Something moving in the darkness beyond my flashlights reached something large. What happens if I refuse? Harold's too wide smile returned. Then the beast takes the town, all of it. The pact will be broken completely. My finger tightened on the trigger. And if I kill you? Then you've removed the last barrier holding it back. Harold took another step forward. I am the lock on its cage, Ryan. Kill me, and you set it free. The movement behind him got bigger, a huge shadow rising from the cave floor. I couldn't really see what it was, just something big and wrong that hurt my eyes to look at. I only had a few seconds to decide. Harold kept coming toward me, his face looking less human with every step. I fired. The shot was crazy loud in the cave. Harold stumbled backward, blood spreading across his shirt. He looked down at the wound, seeming a little surprised. You fool. He gasped, dropping to his knees. I was the only thing keeping it contained. I walked up slowly, rifle still raised. Harold fell onto his back with blood pooling beneath him. The beast isn't what you think, he wheezed, grabbing my ankle with surprising strength. It's been hiding as the girl you saw. Now there's nothing stopping it. His grip loosened. I watched his body get old, super fast. His skin got wrinkly, hair turned white, and his face sunk in. His black eyes turned milky white, then went completely cloudy. The ground began to shake. Dust and small stones rained from the ceiling. The shadow behind Harold's body grew, taking up the whole chamber. I ran. The tunnel felt longer going back, and it bent in ways I didn't remember. The shaking got worse, with walls cracking around me. I fell twice, catching myself on the stone walls. Behind me, something howled. A sound too big for the tunnel, too big for the mountain itself. It chased me upward, pushing at my back like a real thing. I burst through the metal door into the basement corridor. The lights were flickering, and the building made creaking noises around me. I sprinted for the stairs, taking them two at a time. The main floor was a mess. Furniture flipped over, windows cracked. I ran for the entrance, not stopping to grab anything from the security office. Outside, there was noise and movement everywhere. Car engines roared, people yelled, headlights shined through the dark as vehicles drove away from homes. The town was evacuating. I ran to my car, threw the rifle in the back seat, and sped out of the parking lot. The road into town was packed with cars and trucks, all going the opposite way, away from Blue Ridge. Main Street was a mess. People loaded vehicles with whatever they could carry. Children cried. A fire had started in one of the storefronts, with orange flames burning into the night sky. I saw David Wilson directing traffic at an intersection. I pulled over and jumped out. What's happening? I shouted over the noise. David's face was grim. You killed him, didn't you? It wasn't really a question. Harold was our protection. He made the original pact 100 years ago. Now it's free. I didn't know. Doesn't matter now. David pointed down the road. Get out while you can. It's coming. I got back in my car and followed the stream of vehicles heading out of town. We made it 3 miles before hitting a roadblock. A massive tree had fallen across the highway, blocking both lanes. I turned around, trying another route. Same story. A washout had taken out the bridge over Blackwater Creek. The sudden storm that had blown in was flooding low areas, cutting off escape routes. After the third blocked road, I gave up and headed back to my uncle's cabin. The town was half empty now. Those who couldn't get out barricading themselves in their homes or gathering at the church whose lights lit up the darkness. I pulled up to the cabin and sat in the car, engine idling. The rifle lay on the back seat, useless now. I'd killed Harold thinking I was protecting myself. Instead, I'd broken the last seal holding back whatever lived under the mountain. My phone rang. Emma's name flashed on the screen. "Ryan, I've been trying to reach you for hours." Her voice was tight with worry. "I'm okay." I lied. "Just been busy. You don't sound okay." "What's going on?" I watched lightning flash over the mountains. The storm was getting worse. "Nothing. Everything's fine." "Ryan, please, talk to me. I'm worried about you." I closed my eyes, leaning my head against the steering wheel. "I think I made a mistake coming here, Em, then come home. Just get in your car and drive. I'll meet you halfway." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I killed a man tonight. Because I set something free that should have stayed locked away. Because every road out of town is blocked. I just need to figure some things out first," I said instead. "Ryan, you're scaring me. This doesn't sound like you. I'm fine. Really." I forced a steadiness into my voice I didn't feel. "I'll call you tomorrow, okay? Promise? Promise." I ended the call and got out of the car. The wind had picked up, bending the trees at the edge of the clearing. I unlocked the cabin door and stepped inside, locking it behind me. The cabin seemed tiny now, and I felt exposed. I checked all the windows, drawing the curtains tight. I brought in the rifle and loaded a fresh round into the chamber. From my window, I saw the trees moving in the forest, not just from the wind, but like something big was pushing through them. It was summer, but the air was freezing cold. I could see my breath inside the cabin. I sat at the kitchen table, rifle across my lap, and waited for whatever was coming. The wind got stronger outside, shaking the windows. I checked my watch just past midnight. The storm came in quick, way too fast and strong. I tried the radio, static, the TV, nothing but snow. My phone had one bar that kept coming and going. Through the window, I saw the last few cars in town driving to the church. Their lights showed the empty streets for a second before going dark again. People who couldn't get out were sticking together, maybe for safety, or maybe nobody wanted to die alone. I stayed put. Whatever was out there had been watching me since I arrived. It knew where I was. Running wouldn't help. A crash from outside made me run to the window. A pine tree had fallen across the road, snapped clean through. Not from lightning. Something had pushed it over. The trees at the edge of the forest moved the wrong way, like something big was pushing through them. I moved away from the window, gripping the rifle tighter. The cabin felt really thin right now, like it couldn't keep out what was outside. My breath came out foggy. The temperature dropped at least 20 degrees in the last hour. I could see frost forming on the inside of the windows, and it was July. I needed to think, to figure out what I was dealing with. Harold told me the beast wasn't what I thought. It had been hiding as the girl I saw in the woods. It wore faces. It knew what I wanted. My uncle must have learned something. He'd been here longer, had time to look around. I'd searched the cabin when I first got here, but only found hidden bottles. Thomas was careful, though. If he found something important, he wouldn't leave it out. I ran my hand along the bottom of the kitchen table, checking for taped stuff or notes. Nothing. I checked behind the drawers, under the mattress, behind the bathroom mirror. Still nothing. The floorboards made noise as I walked to the bedroom. I stopped to listen. One board near the bed sounded different, hollow. I knelt down and pushed on it. The board moved a little. I got my fingers in the edge and pulled. The board came up easy, showing a small space underneath. A manila envelope was in the dust, sealed with tape. I grabbed it and went back to the kitchen table, keeping the rifle nearby. Inside the envelope was a bunch of papers, notes in my uncle's handwriting, newspaper clippings, and rough drawings. I spread them out on the table, using my flashlight to see better. The top sheet was dated 3 weeks before Thomas died. It's not a beast, not in the way we understand. It exists between places, our world and somewhere else. The door in the basement is an anchor point, a way for it to reach through. Harold knows more than he's saying. He's connected to it somehow, bound to it. The next page had a drawing of the stone markers I'd seen in the underground chamber, with notes about where they were and the symbols carved into them. The symbols form a binding circle. Old magic, the kind that requires blood to work. Harold's blood or someone else's. I went through more pages. Thomas had been working hard in his final weeks, figuring out the history of Blue Ridge and the thing that lived under the mountain. 1923. First documented pact with the beast. 7 people disappeared that year. Town records show Harold Jenkins arrived the same year. Coincidence? 1972. 3 maintenance workers found dead at the lodge. All 3 had been checking out noises in the basement. All 3 had broken the rules about staying on paths. 1998. Lodge closed for 6 months after structural damage. Reopened with new basement door and 3 locks. George Campbell became manager the same year. The next page made my stomach drop. It feeds on fear, on desperation, on the kind of emptiness that drives people to places like Blue Ridge in the first place. People like me. People with nowhere else to go. I thought about why I came here. 6 months sober, running from a life I'd wrecked, hoping to start over. The same desperation my uncle had felt. The final page was dated just 2 days before Thomas died. I know how to end this. The beast is tied to the door, to the stone markers, to Harold. Break one link in the chain and the whole thing falls apart. I'm going down there tonight. If I don't come back, burn everything, the cabin, the lodge, all of it. Fire is the only thing it fears. I put the papers down. I was shaking. Thomas had gone down to the chamber just like I had. But unlike me, he hadn't killed Harold. Something else had happened. A sound from outside brought me back. A soft thump on the porch steps. Then another. Someone walking, taking their time. I grabbed the rifle and moved to the door. Staying to the side of the window, the footsteps stopped at the door. Silence. Then 3 soft scratches on the wood. I held my breath, waiting. 3 more scratches, then a voice. "Ryan, are you in there?" Emma's voice, my sister's voice. But that was impossible. Emma was states away. I'd just spoken to her on the phone. "Ryan, please, I drove all night to get here. Let me in." I moved to the peephole and looked out. Emma stood on the porch, soaked from the rain, her hair plastered to her face. She looked exactly like my sister. The same worried expression she always wore when dealing with me, the same way of hugging herself against the cold. "I was so worried after our call," she said, looking directly at the peephole as if she could see me. "You didn't sound right. I had to come." I backed away from the door. This wasn't possible. Even if Emma had left immediately after our call, she couldn't have made it here this fast. And how would she have gotten through the blocked roads? "Let me in, Ryan." Not Emma called, her voice changing subtly. "I can help you." The scratching returned, harder now. 3 scratches. Pause. 3 more. "Ryan, please, it's cold out here." I backed further into the cabin, mind racing. The beast wears faces. It knows what you fear, what you want, what you'll follow into the dark. The scratching became pounding, the whole door shaking in its frame. The windows rattled. Something heavy slammed against the side of the cabin, making the walls creak. "Let me in, Ryan." The voice wasn't Emma's anymore. It was deeper, distorted, like several voices speaking at once. I needed a plan. The beast wanted in. It wanted me. Harold had said it had chosen me as its new keeper. My uncle's final note kept playing over and over in my head. Fire is the only thing it fears. I looked around the cabin. There was a gas can in the corner by the back door, for the generator, I assumed. And under the sink, I found what I was looking for, a bottle of lighter fluid for the grill. The pounding at the door grew more intense. Wood splintered around the hinges. It wouldn't hold much longer. I worked quickly, pouring gas along the walls, over the furniture, across the floor. The fumes made my eyes water, but I kept going until the can was empty. Then I added the lighter fluid, making sure to create a path from the back door to the front. As I worked, I kept my phone in my pocket. When I finished, I took it out and typed a quick email to Emma, my real sister, not the thing outside pretending to be her. I explained everything, the beast, the pact, what I'd learned from Harold, and my uncle's notes. I told her I loved her and that I was sorry for all the worry I'd caused her over the years. I hit send just as the front door gave way with a crash of splintering wood. The thing that stepped through the doorway wore Emma's face, but the resemblance ended there. Its body was wrong, too tall, too thin, joints bending in impossible ways. Its skin stretched and moved as if something underneath was trying to get out. "Ryan," it said, Emma's voice coming from a mouth that smiled too widely. "I've been waiting for you." I backed toward the kitchen, keeping the table between us. "What do you want from me?" "The same thing I wanted from Harold. The same thing I've wanted for 100 years. It took another step inside, its movements jerky and unnatural. A keeper, a vessel, someone to hold me so I don't have to go back to the dark. And if I refuse, then I take the town, all of it. Every soul that couldn't escape." Its smile widened further, splitting Emma's face in a way that made my stomach turn. "Starting with you," it lunged forward with impossible speed, clearing the table in a single bound. I stumbled back, digging in my pocket for the matches I'd grabbed from the drawer. Its hand, no longer Emma's hand, but something with too many joints and long bent fingers, grabbed my shirt, pulling me close. Its face changed, features melting and reshaping into something that looked like my uncle. "Thomas wasn't strong enough," it said in my uncle's voice, "but you are. You can end this, Ryan, just like he tried to." I struck the match and dropped it. The gas ignited with a whoosh, flames racing along the path I'd created. The thing wearing my uncle's face screamed, a sound no human throat could make, and released me. I scrambled toward the back door as fire climbed the walls and licked across the ceiling, heat pressed against my back as I reached for the door handle. The beast howled behind me, its body changing and twisting as flames engulfed it. The cabin groaned as support beams began to give way. I had one chance, one moment to decide. I could run, escape through the back door and leave the beast trapped in the burning cabin, or I could stay, make sure it couldn't escape, even if it meant going down with it. Thomas had tried to end this. Harold had contained it for decades. Now it was my turn. I turned back toward the beast. It writhed in the flames, its body changing rapidly between faces I recognized. Emma, Thomas, Harold, the child from the woods, even my own face, twisted in pain and rage. "It ends with me," I said, though I wasn't sure if I was speaking to the beast or to myself. The roof started to cave in, burning wood falling down around us. The beast screamed with rage so loud it shook the mountains, drowning out even the roaring fire. Smoke got in my lungs, the heat burned my skin. I didn't move as the cabin burned around us. I watched the beast's stolen faces melt off, showing something underneath I couldn't make sense of. Something really old, hungry, and scared. Before the smoke made me blind, I saw its real eyes. Too many to count. Shiny and black, with our fire reflected in them as it burned us both up. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Unfortunately, the channel is going through a tough time right now, and we really need your help to keep creating content that you love. If you can, please share our videos with your friends and family and leave a comment to let us know what you think. Every little bit helps and keeps us motivated to bring you more great content. Thanks again for being part of our community, and we hope to see you in the next video.